So I'd like to call to the stage now our next guests, and I'm thinking here of Kevin Taillé-Ballet, who is the co-founder of Change Now, and he's going to come up and make a special announcement to us, and also to the stage Ashok Adicéam, who is the French General Delegate for UNOC, and also the Deputy Special Presidential Envoy. Please help me in welcoming. Bonjour. Je commençais à me demander si vous alliez venir ou pas. Je suis ravie. Bonjour. Thank you so much. Thank you. You'll make an announcement then, first of all.
That's right.
Thank you. It's so lovely to meet you. You come and sit down. So first of all, to you, you are the co-founder then of Change Now, and you have something to announce to us today.
That's right, Melissa. Thanks for having us. So I'm truly honored to be sitting with you on stage with Ashok Adicéam, representing the United Nations Ocean Conference, to share a major step towards the ocean today with you. So you know, Change Now was created with the mission of uniting the world of innovators, of investors, of policymakers, of businesses around our major goals. For the next 3 days, we're welcoming 40,000 participants, 10,000 companies, more than 1,000 solutions, 2,000 investors, a lot of decision makers as well. And basically, you know, those numbers are very powerful, but what truly matters is what we make with them. And we believe that this year it's a very important edition because, you know, one of the key milestones of Change Now 2025 is really to be a platform that helps prepare the UN Ocean Conference that will be happening in Nice and Monaco in June. And that's the reason why we've designed this week around, you know, with a very specific ocean agenda. We have, you may have seen it, 1,000 square meter village of solutions to preserve the oceans right outside on the banks of the Seine River. We've got many conferences on the topic. We have working groups and curated meetings to align the efforts across sectors. Tonight we have an ocean night prepared with all the key actors of the ecosystem. And basically all of this reflects the role of Change Now, which is to build bridges. To build bridges around important causes. And I think that's one that is missing currently in the ocean ecosystem, is the one that is linking capital with solutions. You've heard Daniela say it before. There's less than 0.01% of capital of climate funding that is actually going to the oceans. There is actually less than 1% of philanthropic capital going to the ocean causes in the world today. So we need to address that point and rally not only the governments, but also the private sector, the private capital on this major topic. And because governments and NGOs, they can't do it alone. And citizens can't do it alone. So we need pretty much everyone on deck at the moment. And so there will be a very important moment on the 7th of June at the Blue Economy and Finance Forum in Monaco, where a lot of important, you know, governments, decision makers from all, you know, leaders, companies, and funders will gather to make significant commitments, funding commitments to the blue economy, to ensure that the voice of impact and, you know, impact investors and philanthropists is really loud and clear around those commitments. And I think, Ashok, you have some things to say about that.
Yes, please. Ashok.
To you, Melissa.
No, please. So thank you so much, first of all, for that. But we have a bunch of questions, and I should have specified, by the way, that we're going to be opening questions up to the floor for anyone who might have questions for Ashok. But we have a number of things to cover first that we picked up from the panel, which is what we can expect from UNOC. What are your hopes?
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Kevin, for inviting us Us is the French government I'm representing here. It's also the United Nations. We are organizing for the United Nations this third edition of UNOC that's happening in Nice for the proper UN conference from the 9th to the 13th. And you're right, just before, in Monaco, 30 minutes from Nice, we have proposed to Monaco to co-organize with France this Blue Economy and Finance Forum 2 days before, 7th and 8th. Why? Because we believe that this conference first has to be a conference of action. And there's no action without money. And so the objective of the Blue Economy and Finance Forum is to gather the stakeholders, both from the private and the public sector, like 2,000 stakeholders, and to do exactly what you are doing here, is to gather the stakeholders and to have not only meetings and brainstormings, but rather come with commitments. You said the word. So we have been mobilizing for 2 years now, all the stakeholders in the different countries, in the different UN agencies. We have been bringing together coalitions like the Finance in Common Coalition, which brings the World Bank and the New Development Bank, Washington and Shanghai together, brings all sorts of private equity coalitions, insurance coalitions. We're working very closely with AXA, who's one of our sponsors, and I know was very active in your Change Now forum, to come with specifics on specific thematics. And I'm very happy to have heard the priorities laid out by the panel before on conservation, on high seas, on fishing, and all this with concrete geographies and to bring really the stakeholders on board in the decisions, in the commitments, and in the financing. I won't get into too much of details into that. Of course, between the North and the South, we know that there's a lot of expectations, more than hopes. But what we have tried to do with Pascal Lamy, who is the co-chair of this Blue Economy and Finance Forum, the former Director General of WTO, is to come with 3 layers of or 3 work streams. One is initiatives, which are finance initiatives, and we have come already with 10 billion projects, which are going to be presented at BEF in Monaco. 10 billion for a certain number of projects. It's not big, but it's concrete. The second is these initiatives of multi-stakeholders joining together, public and private, and we hope to bring together 100 billion euros through these coalitions. The big one, that was an easy one, being the maritime transport. You're speaking about change now and transition here. The maritime transport is engaging into decarbonization with both the public sector, the UN with the IMO, which has come to an agreement, which in the next 10 years will invest 10 billions every year. So from now till 2035, there's 100 billion which are going to be brought for decarb, and specifically I told you about geographies, addressing the small development islands and the South, the global South. And that's very concrete. And the last point in these layers, in these work streams, is what we are doing now and going to engage. With my colleagues who are here today, we have worked with Monaco, with Bloomberg, with Oceano Azul Foundation for months now to coalesce philanthropists, and there are a lot in the room, and investors. There's even more in the room, and you're part of those investors and you have that background, in a new coalition which is going to be called Philanthropists and Investors in Ocean, PIO. The objective of this coalition is to have a mapping of these philanthropies, like Bloomberg, who has been investing for years now in resilience in coastal communities, to know where are the needs, but where also are the boulevard of opportunities in this transition. Because we believe that the ocean is not only a victim, the ocean is part of a solution, and a huge solution. We're speaking about trillions of investment possible. And that's the reason why we believe that professionals like you, in Change Now, with your network, we can engage, we can even marry.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. But let's engage now. We'll marry in Monaco. That's even more romantic.
Not sure how either of your wives are going to feel about this, but yes.
We're just speaking about it. And we have Indian origins in common, by the way. To bring the networks which are here, the investors and the philanthropists, to bring the networks of these big foundations I mentioned together and to do a proper mapping of the investments now, with what they are doing as philanthropists, for the investors to see what is bankable, because we know that the investors, they're not philanthropists, but we want these two communities to engage in a dialogue and a collective mobilization. And that's what we want to do with Change Now.
That is fascinating. Please, Kevin, before we open up to the floor.
I mean, the mapping is really important because if once you know who invests in what amounts on what topics, you're able to actually create a connection between the capital and actually the solutions that are deployed. You have so many of them actually at Change Now here working on, basically, corals preservation or depollution, plastic depollution, and ecosystem restoration. So basically, what's interesting is to have that ecosystemic view of basically which investors are funding what amounts and on what kind of channels. And once you're able to do that, you're able to drive that capital and deploy it over the next few years on the solutions. That's what we intend to do, and that's the reason why we need you guys, we need all of you, all the philanthropists, all the investors that plan to make an investment by 2030 on a topic related to the ocean, to declare it on the QR code that you're going to see in a few seconds, so that we understand, we have the data, we have the knowledge, and we're able to understand how much capital is going to get deployed over the next years, to know if we're on track or not, and then to be able to connect that with concrete projects.
That's fascinating. Just before I open it up to questions, I had one listening to you both. It's fascinating. I can see how a gathering like this one, Change Now, the gathering that you talk about in Monaco, the one that will follow in Nice, are crucial to gathering together all the stakeholders. But we're talking about very specific initiatives that will make a concrete difference, and that is good. Have we given up asking governments for binding agreements? Is that no longer what we expect or need?
Thank you for the question. We have a triangle of priorities for the conference. It's very simple.
Okay.
On the tip of the triangle is our responsibility as governments. It's ocean governance. And ocean governance, you spoke about this coalition. I think it's Daniela who spoke about this coalition of mayors and governors. That's governance, that's local governance. That is also the countries.
Crucial.
It is crucial, it's at the top of the priorities because you need governance for impact. That's why, but the governance needs science. And that's the second part of the triangle. That's the reason why we're organizing just before the Monaco Blue Economy and Finance Forum, this conference of scientists, 2,000 scientists brought together, are going to work hard for 3 days and come out with recommendations, not only resolutions, and concrete tools like the digital twin for the ocean, which is financed by the EU and which is going to be launched in Nice. And the other tip of the triangle is blue economy and finance. So that's it. We're not removing our responsibility as countries, as member states of the UN. If I may, there's just three priorities that I would like to define as far as our responsibility is concerned regarding binding treaties. We are in this race for ratifying the High Seas Treaty, which has been signed last September 23. We need 60 countries to ratify. France has ratified. There's like more than 30 now who are ratifying. We still need 30 countries. I know there's not many member states in the room, but you are, I think, and every one of us, we are voices in front of our governments. We need 60 countries to ratify this High Seas Treaty because that is 65% of the ocean, and which is the majority of the ocean, and which today belongs to no one and which is not regulated. And again, there is a boulevard of opportunities for economy, for investors, for science, for health in this ocean, which can be governed in common. That's a common good. The second one is fisheries. There is this treaty on Fish 1, Fish 2 at l'Organisation Mondiale du Commerce. World
Trade.
WTO, thank you. In Geneva, where there is this binding treaty to remove the illegal and unreported fishing and the subsidies of governments which goes to these illegal and unreported fisheries, and which is something which is very high in the agenda of countries like France or the EU. And the third one would be on this 30 by 30 agreement. That means the Kunming-Montreal Agreement, which has given a framework for biodiversity and to reach the target in 2030 of 30% of marine protected areas in the world. And as Daniela reminded us, we are just at 8%, because there's still a lot of work to do. And even in countries like ours, France, where we have reached the 30% of marine protected areas, there's still a lot of work to do in the level of protection in these oceans. And it is, as you know, Melissa, under attack. The marine protected areas, which are like Central Park in New York, just parks for regeneration of nature and the reconciliation between humans and nature and the species. I just want to say one last word, if you allow me.
Please.
Is we want to reconcile protection with prosperity. There is not a contradiction between preserving, protecting, regenerating, and making use of the resources of the ocean for humanity. It's just a way of getting there, which is the work of everyone, which is the work of the countries, which is the work of the scientists to help decisions to be made, and it's the work also of investors and corporates to take this into account in their way of creating growth and value.
But listening to you, there is actually a lot of ambition and a lot of hope there in the weeks and months ahead on all of the fronts that you mentioned. I wonder if there are questions from the audience for either Kevin or Ashok on any of these issues.
All is clear.
No, apparently you've been very clear then.
Well, the plan now is...
I am impressed though by everything we've just heard from Ashok, and Kevin, maybe give me your view. There are a lot of very concrete actions and very ambitious proposals that are on the table. And whilst, as Daniela said earlier, maybe the ocean hasn't had the kind of consideration it deserved, there's a lot that's being done and there's a lot of hope out there, however great the urgency.
Sorry.
There's a lot of hope in what Ashok just had to say, in very tangible agreements that could be reached in the next few months. So you are hopeful as well?
I am, and I will be even more when we're able actually to start tracking those commitments. So the idea is that today, this is the kickoff, and between now and actually June 7th, we will be able to gather all the commitments from our networks. And I mean, there was supposed to be a QR code to show you, but we will share it with all the investors and the philanthropists that are part. Oh, there it is. If you want to scan the QR code here, if you are a philanthropist or an investor, please, I invite you to scan this code and declare your intentions, your commitments. And on June 7th in Monaco, we'll be able to share the amount that have been committed. And it's the first step, and this is a work that we're going to be continuing over the years to come. And you can count on us to connect those commitments with concrete solutions and to play the role of a bridge. Thank you for your support, and thank you for being here again.
And maybe the last word then to you, Ashok. I know that you've mentioned these agreements, these talks, these hopes, these plans. It's interesting because the world is kind of going not in a sense of multilateralism or more awareness of the urgency of these issues. It's fascinating to hear that so much is being done behind the scenes and how hopeful you are. What is your last message then on the question of the oceans, even as we look ahead to this conference? Can it be addressed?
Yes, as we are celebrating, I don't know if we can still celebrate, but we have to stand firm with the Paris Agreement for climate. And
renew the determination, right?
Yes, this is the place for it, Change Now at the Grand Palais. We are hoping to come out from Nice with the Nice agreements for the ocean. And that's the ambition. With all few of the examples I have given you, and with this way of bringing together governance, science, and economy and finance in a multi-stakeholder approach. The result will be the Nice Ocean Action Plan. That's in our modality resolution. That's in the UN language. And we hope that this plan would then be implemented. I was listening to Dr. Sylvia Earle in the movie, and she said there's only 5 years to change the tide or not. That's the sense, more than hope, the sense of urgency in all our activities. And I wanted to mention, Melissa, that we need all the stakeholders, and the stakeholders are the governments, the countries, the member states, the scientists, the corporates, the financiers, the NGOs, of course, very important, but also the media. And I'm speaking to you. But you're doing a great job at CNN, of course. You have this vision. Which
Otherwise occupied right now.
No.
On the whole.
And many of you in the media, but we need more. It's not us. It's this question of standing firm in what creates a future for humanity.
And Ashok, the beginning of this conversation was 2030, the sustainable goals that in 2015 had elicited all this enthusiasm and all this hope, and the ocean was, I believe, number 14. Is it your belief that these next conferences, Monaco, Nice, will allow us to reach what was a very ambitious goal in 2015 and is actually 5 years away? It can still be done.
What happened 10 years ago was designing a trajectory. And because we can visualize that trajectory, we know that we are not respecting that trajectory. We hope to come out with Nice with the same kind of a trajectory that would be with metrics, with indicators, that the world would come together on. And the first thing I would say, the conference would be a success if we get these 60 countries to ratify the High Seas Treaty, because that would launch the first COP, the COP1 of the ocean 2 or 3 years later, and that would help then the world, all the countries of the world, to agree or disagree, but at least to see the trajectory. And that's very important, and that's our job as framers, as diplomats, as like you, that's what you're doing as well, an assemblier, bringing the stakeholders together to define in common our future.
Ashok, Kevin, thank you so much for that fascinating conversation and note of optimism. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.